is the Algebra Day 2 practice worksheet, number 7. You have negative root 150. And negative really just means negative 1 times square root of 150. I'm going to break down the square root of 150. Different things might come to mind, like 15 times 10. But when you start just trying to come up with numbers that work, for some students that's easy to do, and for some students that is not very easy to do. And so a systematic way or structured way to go about it is just to start with your small prime numbers and work your way up. So 150 divided by 2 is 75. 150 divided by 3 is 50. And I'm looking for perfect squares. 150 divided by 4 is a decimal, so we're not going to use that. 150 divided by 5 is 30. 150 divided by 6 is 25. And I'm going to stop there. Since I started with smallest numbers going to 2, 3, 5, 6, when you get to a perfect square, that's going to be the largest perfect square there is. So 25 is going to be my largest perfect square. So square root of 25 goes first because I like my perfect squares first, and my other factor 6 goes second. So I have negative 1 times the square root of 25. The square root of 25 is 5 times the square root of 6. Negative 1 times 5 is just negative 5. So my answer is negative 5 root 6. I do want to show you a way to do this. If you want to look at the other strategy, which does not involve using perfect squares, you could actually use the square root of 15 and the square root of 10 to do the problem. So if you don't want to see the other strategy, go ahead and stop the video. If you do want to see the other strategy, continue watching. The idea with the other strategy is to try to create perfect squares if you don't see any. So right now I have square root of 15 and square root of 10, which are not perfect squares, and so I'm going to break those down even more. So for 15, I have square root of 3 and square root of 5. And for 10, I have square root of 5 and square root of 2. Whenever I see the same number, I can put those together because what we said in class was that we defined a perfect square as the same number multiplied by itself. And so what I really have here is a square root of 3, a square root of 25, because 5 times 5 is 25, so I created a perfect square, and then a square root of 2. If I simplify those, I have a square root of 3 times the number 5, the square root of 25 is 5, times the square root of 2. And the way that that works out as a final answer is that I have a 5 on the outside. It is negative, of course, because there's a negative somewhere along the way, so add that in. And then the square root of 3 times the square root of 2, you can put those back together and say square root of 6. That's still simplified, and that's the way that we would write it. So that's just the other strategy, in case you're curious.